I built the boat from Dredge in Raft. Hi friends, and welcome back to Raft. I would say that I am decently well known for my Raft builds and build tutorials, and I frequently receive questions asking me how I come up with my builds and asking for details on my creative process. Well, I've recently been obsessed with Dredge, and was struck with the inspiration to build what is arguably the main protagonist of that fishing game inside my favorite ocean floating simulator. And today, I'll be taking you along for the journey on how I designed the builds that later become the subject of my build tutorials. So without further ado, let's build the boat from Dredge in Raft. So already looking at the boat, I can tell that one of the hard things for this build is going to be getting the proportions right. Because one of the difficult things about coming up with creative designs in Raft is that a full wall is taller than the player, meaning that any build that I build needs to scale to this accordingly, so any usable space has to be at least this tall. But this is a big kind of pixel to work with, quote unquote, in terms of building out. And the Dredge boat is tiny. So that means that our biggest challenge with designing this boat to look accurate to Dredge in some way, shape, or form, and also being a usable Raft design, is going to be the scale of the boat. Looking at it, it looks like it's almost as wide as it is long. It's slightly longer than it is wide, but not by a whole lot compared to other boats. So I'm going to start with a relatively wide canvas. I also think one of the things we're going to have to do with this boat is move where the waterline is up. Because if we look at where the waterline is falling on some of these images, that does not give us enough space to work with, especially now when we consider that the receiver needs to be at least a half wall above sea level to work. Yeah, I think we're going to have to move the waterline up a little bit. It shouldn't be too bad, but I think we can do it. So first step is wide canvas. I like to keep the original 4 foundations as the center just so that I know where they are later on. Because if you build your raft off center, it's annoying, and I copy paste my builds into other worlds whenever I'm working on various projects. So let's start. We need at least 5 wide. We've got that. Let's try doing an even number wide. We'll see how it goes. I'm worried about the shape being a little too pointy if we just do it this way. We'll try 6. If it ends up needing to be odd so that it ends on a flat point instead, we can make that work, but we'll try even first. Yeah, I think 9 long because then it's an odd number. Odd numbers look better in our brains. So if we think about that as being the rectangle aspect of the boat, I think that works. One of the ways we can kind of push it to make it work a little bit better is by rounding off the back edge. Those are the wrong grain direction. If we round off the back edge so that eventually this goes straight up back here, either a half wall or a full wall tall like that, because it gives us a little bit of rounding but doesn't take away too much space for that. And then we just need to round out the front, which the classic boat method is just tons of triangles, but I think that might look too sharp on this particular boat. Okay, maybe not if we do 2 triangles, 2 squares. That does still look pretty round comparatively. I even think we might be able to go longer. Again, we don't want to get too big because that's where things start getting weird. We might be able to go 1 or 2 more out. I'm going to try 2. We'll see how that looks. Okay, yeah, that's not bad in terms of boat shaping. I'm not mad at that, especially if we think about it right. So these 2 sides are going to be diagonal outwards, and we know that this part needs to be at least a full wall tall, because that's by far the tallest part of the bow, so this needs to come out all of the way to give us any hope of having any usable space on the bottom layer, which we need for the engine and the anchors and that kind of stuff. Yeah, okay, I'm not mad at that. We may even push this so that this is another half wall tall, because that way we can do kind of a fun thing where this will be 2 half walls tall, then we even get like the little slant down from the bow. Let me start building the outside of the hull, and we'll see how we feel about it sloping down. We do have some natural slope that we need to work with, but we'll see how extreme we want to make it. Because when we look at the Dredge boat from top down, it seems like the front bow and the back of the hull are at the same height, but when we look at it from the side profile, we can see that the bow is slightly higher than the stern is supposed to be. We'll just see if we can make it work in this scale, because if we can't, we can't, and that's just what it is. We at least know that this needs to come down at some point, because we do need to get that nice little chip in the boat, because this is going to have to go down by 2 then in order to do that. And the question is, do we really want it to be that steep of a drop off, even if I do it like that? Maybe when we remove this. I wish there was another wall height in Raft that wasn't just a full wall or a half wall so that we had more resolution to work with, but Right now, this is what it looks like flat, and I don't love it. I want this to be like a cabinet tall. Maybe that's how we do it. One moment, I might have just had a stroke of brilliance. So if I fill in my roof here, and I'm going to fill it in using triangles, that way we don't need support for it. I also use a mod in my designing process called Building Utilities, which is a great mod. However, that mod means that I don't have to do the actual window trick whenever I'm just designing rafts, because it does get tedious. So I can place things freely without support, but I don't use that mod when I'm actually testing the builds, just to make sure that they're all physically and normally possible in Raft. I use it just when designing to make my own life easier, and also because I'm lazy. Oh no. I did the wood grain backwards from the foundation. That's gonna bother. I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna change the base. I'm gonna change the base so that it's the same. I like it when it goes perpendicular. So just in case you weren't aware, when you are working with wood grain, at least on PC, I don't know the console button, you can go over to any triangle floor foundation and press Z to mirror it, and that changes the direction the wood is actually pointing. So instead of here, where if I did this, it's facing the wrong way compared to that. If I do the same foundation again, like that, then it's rotated the proper way, and the wood grain is the correct direction, which looks a little bit nicer and makes things a little bit more continuous. Also, the building utilities mod is what allows me to hover things like this, because there's no foundation there, so these walls should have been destroyed. Again, it's more of a design thing at this point. I always rebuild them in a normal, non-modded world just to make sure that everything works, but this helps me when I make stupid mistakes and don't want to rebuild literally everything. So another note if we're building this again is that I should have built it one more tile this way so that these 4 tiles were lined up with where our current dip is in the side of the boat. But that's what testing is for. But for now, they're just an indicator of where I can center the raft in the future. Because one of the weird things about Raft is that your raft is technically the center of the world. The islands you sail past are the things that are actually moving. Your raft isn't, which makes perfect sense in physics because physics isn't real. So, just so you know, the world does revolve around your raft. That is genuinely true. Tell your parents that, kids. All right, there we go. So I filled in the whole floor for where I think the top deck is going to go for now, if I like how this scales. But one of the things is if I look at it like this, obviously it is very flat and there's not a ton of shaping here either. This does need to stay as a vertical drop because that's what it's like in the boat. However, I want to find a way to rim them. So there's the classic option of pillars, or we take some pillars and then when you go to paint pillars like this, then we could paint them, I don't know, light gray or something like that. That's the closest color match we've got. And that gives us kind of our rim and railing. And I think this will work around the back edge here if we pretend that this is going to be our full height here. Not my favorite, but I think we could maybe even get away with it by using something like a fence. It's not as solid as I would like it to be. Of course, we could always use detail planks. I just don't like using detail planks. I find them annoying. So even if we extended that up one layer, the thing is then we end up at the same half wall tall, and I don't like that. So maybe not this. This is the dilemma of trying to be good at building in Raft. This is what it comes out to. But I think in order to get just a tiny bit more height on this side, we have 2 options. The thing is we also need to be able to hang tires, which does limit our options a little bit. Idea off the port bow. What if instead of extending all the way down, we do another layer of half roofs here so that it becomes our boundary there. Then we do something like maybe 1 full wall, and then we take the long cabinets because those are both long, you don't need a lot of them, and shorter. We could even potentially transition it using one of these as an anchor point for the tire. Wait, this might be big brain. If we think about the fact that we need to hang tires off the side, is this going to fit perfectly with room for 1 more medium cabinet? What if we use the big cabinet like this on the side as kind of an anchor point for the tires? And then it even sticks up on the actual side as well. Wait, this might be kind of huge. Part of the fun about good building in Raft is the experimentation. So let's see, if I really wanted this to be on the corner, we could probably fudge it like a little bit, but we have that much usable space, which is enough for this one. Okay. I don't think that's enough for the other cabinet, but yeah, if we were to hang something or use detail planks or something like that to make a tire here, you're not going to see that hole. And that way we kind of get like a nice little bump for a ballast in the wall if we do it like that. That could work, especially because, again, I don't like using detail planks, but for rimming, that's kind of where I'm allowing myself to ignore it. So if we were to say take a detail plank and run it horizontally along here to create our metal rim on the boat, we would have to play with this to make it look nice. But let's just say it's like that. Then we could theoretically take this one and angle it down to here, and then take this and carry it across. Yeah, we'd have to play with placement there to make it fit exactly as I wanted it to. But I think that works. And then we've got the two little points. We paint them the same red as the underside because that way they got the little thing. We can put a carpet on top if we, or a detail plank on top if we really want the top to be a different color. But yeah, if I were to take an angled plank here and set it on top of this one, like so, we just don't want that corner on top. A little bit of difference is fine, but I try and line up my detail planks so that there's very minimal corner clipping. Yeah, but if we take this and then go straight across here and then we continue that, it allows us to get just a tiny bit of angling without really pushing it. That's a full length detail plank. Okay, and just to show you what it would actually kind of look like then, if I take this and paint it the same silvers, we painted our railing there. Then we take a rusty red color and apply it to this. That's really not bad, especially because, again, keep in mind a tire's going to go here and a tire's going to go here. So if we keep this shaping, that gives us little ballasts. It's not at all hard. It's literally 4 cabinets. I think that works. I like this idea. We're going to keep running with it. I'm going to unpaint everything because I find that painting can be very visually distracting when building. It's usually my favorite last step to do, so I can make sure that everything looks good. And if we really wanted to, the pillars are easy. I like using pillars because they don't require any real thought and you know that they're going to be straight. But if we wanted to keep it consistent, we could take a detail plank down along the side here, make sure it's a nice sharp straight angle, and then do the same thing along this edge like so. And well, the thing is, do we want to do that? Because we do need a way to access the boat. The thing is then those have to be painted silver. We could maybe do it off the, well, that's going to be off center. Oh no, we have a door dilemma. Well, we do, okay, so second thing is that we need a way to get up to this level. I think this is where we start introducing an asymmetrical raft. So let's see, if I were to take a staircase, we'll just use this one for now because it's fine, right? That goes up there. I think because of the way placement works in Raft. So if I temporarily put a floor there, I think I can still put a counter or a cabinet right here on the edge of this one and then delete this. And I think the stair here, just to verify, we'll turn off the building utilities mod, which is again what gives me support override. If I do this and then place the cabinet on top of that, I think this will stay standing. Okay, it does not. This, again, line it up. And then we put, let's say, we need like a shelf. Or a, ooh, shelves are also a good backup just in case. Actually, here, let's try that. Well, that one stayed. Wait, that one just stayed. Okay, so maybe if I just push it all the way out so it's mostly on the wall, like as far out as it can physically go, then if I delete this, it stays. Okay, so the first one deleted. Let's see if I put it so that it lines up with the wall kind of as much as we can on this one. I'm trying to look, like, compare where I was on the other one. So let's say we go here-ish, right? And then I remove this. That removes. Okay, good to know. Backup plan is taking a shelf, because I believe that if I grab a shelf, we'll put some of the other stuff away. And I put a shelf. Well, no, because, well, actually, if I put a shelf on the outside temporarily, if we put this one as, this is going to be complicated, but this is what the world of testing is like. The stairway doesn't even have to go here. But if I were to theoretically use this and then build a floor so that I knew exactly what height it needed to go at, and then we put a shelf that its height is exactly the same height as the floor, like that, and then we can put a cabinet on this. Let's see if this works. Because that's still floating. That's still floating because that's still attached to the floor now, even though I just broke the wall. Again, I don't have the building utilities mod enabled right now, doing anything with that. So that's just all vanilla Raft. This is why this game is janky. Okay, but theoretically, right, if I use that and then I do this and then I get rid of this, that gets rid of both. So that problem solving method doesn't work. The other thing that we can do that we already learned is that it can just go further out on the side, but I don't love that option. I would like it to be most, well, you know, there is a slight lip on the boat, so maybe we actually use these to get kind of that lip effect. We won't get it on the very bow of the boat, but I think that's okay. Never mind, we can't do that because we need these still, and these have to be locked into the building grid. Okay, so that's not the solution. This is why I find detail planks to be one of the most annoying creative materials to work with, but it's so necessary for some of the higher level design stuff that I like to do. I wish it wasn't, believe me. So from here, we're back in the same dilemma where we need a way onto our raft, and I'm thinking it might genuinely be right here. I'm going to turn back on building utilities so I don't accidentally ruin everything that I've made so far. But if we put our door here, that way that stays as a solid mechanism for entering and exiting. We could put another one here, just make it symmetrical, but then I don't think we have room for our engine. I think our engine's going to have to go right here. And I do want it to be closer rather than further. Yeah, okay, so maybe we only have a door on one side. That's a dangerous game. We push it. We push it. We put the door here on either side. That means that if we wall that and designate this as engine space, which I'm just going to paint in right now, this becomes our engine. I think that could work. All right, and we're back to the same dilemma where we want cabinet over here. I think we can make it work. Now we turn this back off just to make sure that anything we do is valid. Can I, if I were to put this triangle like so, or maybe on the other side so it angles like this, you're not gonna be able to walk through that. And it's technically supported on both sides. And everything I'm doing right now is vanilla Raft. So that works. Am I able to walk up this staircase? Yes, that's walkable. Not down, but up. How does that work? Moment of truth. Is this gonna destroy? Yes. Okay. So that kind of needs to be there. What if we use a scaffolding triangle, again, like so. We put this back down where it goes. I'm not going to play around with that until we get it confidently where we want. What if I were to put a detail plank in the floor right here, like so? The thing is, detail planks are not supporting, but they do have a hitbox. And oftentimes that works with things that aren't locked into the building grid. It does work. Okay, so we can actually use the detail plank, but I think if I remove this, then the cabinet goes away. Yeah, okay, so we can use the detail plank. Okay, so we need the triangle first, like that, and then we can place the cupboard, then we can place the detail plank, and that works. This is why whenever I say in my build tutorials that I do things in a certain order for a certain reason, that's why. This is why. Because this is what I go through when I'm designing to make sure that things work. And then I can break the rules of physics just a little bit. Okay, so let's see if I were to angle it kind of so that maybe it's like this, so that I don't think you're as likely to hit your head on it based on the angle. Can I remove that? Nope, that one didn't work. Excellent. Oh, maybe because it wasn't really supporting under where the hitbox of the cabinet is. What if I take it from underneath the cabinet and then put it there? That's slightly angled. I don't like that. That's almost perfectly horizontal too. I think I should still be able to build like a wall here. Yeah, that works. So if I get rid of this, moment of truth, it stays. That's all vanilla. And it's perfectly walkable. Okay, that genuinely worked. And now I can turn building utilities back on. My favorite mod. So that's a vanilla solution to that problem. I like that. That gives us the half wall difference right here. It gives that just a tiny bit more height. I like that solution. That's not bad. I kind of like how we started on this. So then that means trying to find a way to make this area usable. What if we take a staircase right here? I think cheap is going to look better, ironically. We do kind of like this, and then we lose less space. We do kind of one every other thing. Or we reverse this, run it back. What if we instead take this shape and kind of push it out on either side like this? We turn this into the start of the raised area. We can put in some half walls or full walls right here. And then this little section right here becomes usable space for storage if we just take the chests and we hang them off of the walls. We get 1, 2, 3, 4. We can even put a wall in the middle of this section right here. So that becomes 2 cubbies. So that's 4, 8, 12, 16 chests that we could confine in this area by doing this. Question is, what can we do with a half wall tall area back here? Because I think this needs to stay as usable space. And the back end of the boat is definitely flat in shape. So I don't want to risk curving up here. And I want space to place equipment, which means that at least likely we need to block off this amount of space. The question is then, what can we do with this space to make it usable? Because half walls aren't necessarily great for anything, and the only thing that I can think of that goes down a half wall tall is the sprinkler. Because in case you didn't know, the sprinkler range, while it is a 3x3 square, also carries water down a half wall from where it is. So what if, because again, we know we want certain equipment back here, like probably if I were to take the antenna or something and put it on a pillar right here, we know that we need space for a windmill here as well. Frankly, it's either going to be here or on the very top of the boat. And I don't know if the very top of the boat's going to work, and I think it would look better here. I think there's still technically enough placement space if I were to move this one over here then. Okay, that is enough space. The receiver turned on and displayed where the radio tower would be. We're in creative, so it's not going to spawn, but that is a valid antenna placement. And it gives us space for the windmill, and because the main thing that I want to go back here is the rhino shark trophy. I mean, we're making a fishing trawler. It's got to go. If there's any thematic item that we can have on the raft, it's got to be that. And I think if we build properly for the scale of all the trawling equipment here, I think it would look really nice. If we use this as a designated slot for that, yeah, and especially if we face it this way, then we can do the piping. Because this is our engine placement right here. Wait, I might be cooking. If I take my engine, we're just going to use one for now because the one is all that's necessary for this boat. And I grab some carpets. I also usually just have random chests full of building materials whenever I'm doing test building. I just dump whatever items I don't want in there. It's flashed green. I saw it. Again, this is a vanilla trick. This just works in normal Raft. I could use the building utilities mod to do that, but again, that's completely normal. So yeah, now the engine is just going through the floor. And if I were to build up 2 half walls here, then we could remove this one, replace it with an engine like that. That gives us engine access. And if I were to place my advanced biofuel refiner right here, we can use some scaffolding foundation. And then we can delete these, and that automates the engine fuel. And we've got a windmill for battery charging. So then we need electric purifier and sprinkler. And I do think this is going to be our farm location. Because we don't need too much walkable space up here, but we need a 3x3 of usable space for the sprinkler. So what if we fill out this so that we've got a nice usable walkway right here? Sprinkler is gonna have to be off-centered unless we do it along one of these edges. We've got the windmill there, and I like that. So let's take our sprinkler and let's temporarily put it right here. And these are all fully functional too. I think actually if we were smart about this, we could use these advanced grass plots, because this one will, if we do, and then if I were to put the electric purifier right here maybe, kind of along this edge. I mean, that does block off these chests. Okay. Well, okay, so what if we remove this as a storage area and we turn this into a space? Half of testing is just placing down a ton of stuff, removing it, and then building it again. Oh, yep, see, that time it just flashed green. Sometimes you just gotta be patient and wiggle things, and then it'll work. Don't take that out of context, please. But that works, and then I should be able to rebuild the exact same walls that were right here, and our stairway that we had. If we replace this with a window, we can take some water piping and bring that out along some other scaffolding on the outside, like that. And that runs our water automatically to our sprinkler. But yeah, anything before this point would be automatically watered then. And if you put down more crop plots and more carpets, you can make a pretty efficient farm down here. And that's not, I wouldn't call that too much of a hassle, personally. We say that this is all fenced because this is where we would put animals if we wanted to keep animals on our raft. However, we still have a hole right here, and I was thinking for said hole, because we do need things to cover up holes in our raft anyways, and we need some tall things. If I were to take a drawbridge and use kind of a drawbridge as a like pillar item right here, let's say, then I could lower the drawbridge. That just fits nicely on the raft, opens up the hole like a trapdoor. Let's see, what else can go up here that would still be useful? Ooh, recycler. Recycler is tall and bulky. Maybe that can go over here then? Like that? Because again, this is still walkable. Worst case scenario, chests. More chests. Always more chests. I'd like to be a little bit more creative though. There's nothing wrong with having excess storage if that's what it needs to be. And line that entire back wall with chests. What else? So this could just be smelting back up. I do want some more tall, big equipment here. We could do water tank. I just don't like water tanks. I don't find them useful. Oh, we could do sail. Sail is a good idea because that's, again, big and tall. We do that. Yeah, if we do sail and a smelter, I know we can fit both. Because the sail doesn't really care, if we're being honest, and that is still perfectly usable as a smelter. Or again, chests if that's more the inclination, depending on how much storage we end. Well, actually, you know what? Here, we could do same thing here. We're gonna use a little bit of floor space. Yeah, you could absolutely turn down here into more storage for lesser used or just like bulk. That's a solution. I'm not mad about that solution. I'm not super happy about it, but it works and it's good to know. Other things that need to go on the base layer are anchors, and I think those have to go in here. It makes sense for them to go in here. In fact, I think if we can make the anchors clip through right here, that would be our best bet, because you only really need one triangle to support an anchor. So if I were to put carpets down here-ish, right, and then I took an advanced stationary anchor, because that's the one that's usually the maddest about everything. The advanced stationary anchor does not like being placed. It might even be just the floors are in the way. We're going to clear the floors, because sometimes, yeah, even, you see how it places there then? So I wonder if I can force it to place right here. Yep. Literally just by walking. This is why carpets are OP. So that is a valid placement for the advanced anchor, which means that it would work on both advanced anchors. If it works on one, it works on both. Okay, so that works. I'm just gonna fill in the ceiling again. It was mad about the ceiling, not about the floor. This game makes sense all the time. And that means that we're not worried about using that kind of diagonal space, and that's good. So we've got engine, anchor, those are done. We've got nice access to our doorway. We've got our recycler. We've got a farming setup already. This little drawbridge solution. Let's see how we're looking from external POV. Clutter on the back is good. I think in order to really make any more progress from here, we're gonna need to start working on the little navigation house. And that's a pretty wide and long cabin. And it looks like from the back perspective of the boat, looks like this right here is the door. So these two right here are the door, and then like if we did kind of this, it would come up on one on either side from there. Of course, our door isn't going to be too wide. That is one of the bad things about building the boat the way we have, because our options are either here or here, and I think I want it wider than I want it longer. So if we go 2 out, we want a pretty good amount of space inside. So what if we do kind of like that? Proportionally, that gives us plenty of space for the engine house. I don't think that's bad, and I don't think we want to bring it out this way. I would like it if we could go out maybe this far, like to this second line, but I don't think we're going to be able to get that. So I think this is what we're working with. What if we did it like this, so that there's just kind of like a little hallway here? Technically, there doesn't need to be a hallway. People always tell me that I don't have enough storage in my boats. I beg to differ, but that's not bad, because that means this is all usable storage right here. And then we've got all of this as storage too. I feel like that is plenty of usable storage, and you could still put more along these walls if you really wanted to. Let's see, as far as basic utilities go, we've got biofuel. Ooh, could we fit a kitchen down here maybe? I can do wall here, just not right there because of the anchor. Fit a triangle, would that work? Yeah, okay, so you can just make a wall. Nice. You can't put a normal half wall, but you can put a double triangle wall. Again, this game makes perfect sense all the time. So let's just say we want all 3 cooking pot, juicer, crafter. Grill can go there. Here, yeah, especially if we put juicer, then that just becomes space for battery entry, which doesn't happen super frequently. So that's not bad in terms of kitchen space. We got rid of the door right there. Cooking pot would be great here. Otherwise, cooking pot would go here along this diagonal, and I don't like that. Maybe we section this off into its own little room right here. Always turn this into another door. A lot of doors in quick succession, but it does mean, because the main purpose of having the door on the side is that you have a space to get back into your raft. And you're not missing that jump unless you're doing something horribly wrong. We put this cooking pot right here. Don't love how close that is. Maybe we change it so the door opens this way. That's a little bit better. So then that turns this into a kitchen. We've got storage and utility still over here. 2 doors means that we've got more usable space just in case. But you can always flush it out. We can take 2 more chests. Shove them under here. Could do a crop plot or 2 on the wall for some potatoes and beats. It wouldn't be automatically watered, but it would be handy. I don't really want to cut off this walkway too much, but we could do one right here. I don't think there's anything else that needs to go in the kitchen. We've got all 3 usable cooking stations. We've got an electrical purifier, so we're good on water. We've got a battery charger. We've got a recycler. Yeah, so that's room for decoration. Maybe even just like a plant right here that fits. We still got this whole space. Yeah, so I think we just need to focus on the cabin, figure out the rest of this shaping, and then we can figure out the rest of the game from there. The cabin needs to be at least decently tall. We're going to start with 3 half walls. We'll see how that looks proportionally. I'm just going to do it all out of solid walls first, and then we can go back and add windows where we think they're going to look the best. Because this engine house is pretty tall comparatively. It might even be 4 to make it look proportionally correct from the outside. Yeah, I think we need 1 more layer to make that look right from back here. Yeah, that's better proportionally. And it means that we can do windows maybe like this orientation and case it in a little bit with pillars. That could work. That's not bad. And just to make sure that everything looks correct on the outside, one of my favorite tricks is to take curtains and cover these bad boys. Because then if we think about this main building being white and then covering the windows with black curtains, that gives us the contrast we want there. I do think that's going to look more proportional. And if we test out some of the coloring here, yeah, I wish that window was a little bit bigger, but I think, well, unless we just get rid of this one too and do the same pillar technique here. Yeah, I think that works. I think that works proportionally. So 4 walls tall, a little bit taller than I would like it to be, but we can work with it. We can make this work. So we come up 2 stories tall. We need an entrance point, and it would make most sense to have the entry point be on this side. Can we make it work if we have this be the door? I have an idea and I don't know if it's going to work if this is our door. Actually, you know what? Maybe it will if we come out here and do like a triangle right here. Then we just make this little bit raised like that. And then we can put receiver right there maybe in the window because you want to be able to see out the window when you're looking. The question is, do we want the steering wheel to be raised or do we want the receiver to be raised? The only issue with steering wheel is that it's always off center. So steering wheel goes on right side. I think that means I still have room for receiver. Maybe if we angle it slightly. I saw it flash green. Okay, so that does work. And then, yeah, you can still perfectly use this. Again, that's battery access, and you can easily do that from right here instead. Steering wheel. Just to really cram things in up here, we could probably get engine control as well. Not bad. And just to make things look a little bit nicer, maybe we get a little bit of this going. Triangle here. We turn this into another cubby of some sort for storage or something. Pathway doesn't really make sense there. Because the bad thing is we can't do stairs on a diagonal. So stairs have to be straight. Grab that. Maybe we do a stair right here though. Then we bring this line out, another one right here. We section this off. We make this the bedroom. And then this is nice and open. We can maybe do like a lofted area right here. Do kind of like an office space and then like a full loft. Might be cooking. Yeah, pillar right there for aesthetics, even though you don't need it. That makes this walkable space. We've got a loft here. Turn this into a triangle going this way. Yeah, I wish you could place stairs on the diagonal. It'd be a great place for it. And these are closable for the aesthetic, but openable to make it functional. You have to deal with the frickin' antenna things coming through. Ooh, we need to place down our 3rd antenna as well. That might have to go in this corner back here. Either above or below. It might work better below. Is this half wall gonna screw us over? They're too far. So maybe instead of having them all the way in the back here, because that's too far, maybe we manage to wiggle them one right here and one on the other side. Like if we can get it to stand, if I put a pillar down right here, will it stand on top of this? Yes. Does that work? Because they're within half a wall of each other. Too close to other antenna, wrong altitude. No. Okay, so those need to be taller. It's going to be obsessive about that. Maybe is this going to work? Again, detail planks will make everything a little bit wonky. Worst case scenario, we can always put it outside. Those two are functional. Now we're into the issue of the middle receiver, which there isn't a great place for. Unless we put it on top of here. Will that work? Okay, let's try putting it on a pillar because we do need something tall in the middle of the boat. So if that'll work, then that'll work. That works. That's it. That's the placement. Okay. So that means antenna are functional. Not necessarily exactly where I wanted them, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I think they would have looked nicer on the back of the boat, but with the spacing, it just doesn't work, and we don't really have a good place to fully hide them. I do think that means that we need to put our big pillar kind of right here, the one that all of the piping connects to. Actually, I have an idea for that, so let's bring it up. What if we try and flush it out a little bit? Because again, this space doesn't need to be open. Let's just see if I were to hypothetically take 2 shelves and 2 long cabinets. Cabinets are one of my favorite tools for kind of non-conventional building because they're thick enough to not be like overly huge in terms of this game's hitboxes, but they're also not the worst to work with in terms of verticality or anything like that. So this side wants to place them horizontally. What happens if I put it on this side? That puts them vertically. So this is why I always double check, because that means I should, if I raise this up enough, like if I do another identical shelf right here, I should be able to place it on this shelf technically, and then lower it so that it's in the ground. The thing is, do we want 1 or 2? I don't want 1.5, which is not great. They are hard to clip into each other using shelves. You can do it. It just requires more patience than I think most people have. We line it up. That looks good. We keep the pillars. I think that should give us the placement we want, because we don't want the rope to place quite at the top. And we're going to do the ropes like I do all of the ropes on my belt with zip lines. And then it connects just barely not at the top. And then you can do this. Also, if you scroll while holding a zip line, it wiggles the line so we can make it droop artificially like this. That's not bad. Maybe a little bit aggressive of a droop, but it works. It connects. There aren't a lot of boats on this boat for it being a fishing boat. I think the next thing I should probably figure out is the roofing. Because one of the things you can do in this game is if I come out on any side here and do it like this, and if I take horizontal pillars and base them off of here, now these two are supporting each other, so I could destroy this one and this would float. Because this game makes perfect sense. Let me make that 4 long, because that's the exact width of the boat, and we do it maybe like that. No, that's way too big of a gap. Ooh! Double axis offset time? I love me a double axis offset because the roof extends over the side of the hut, but not by like a huge amount, and we don't want it to be hugely curved is the hard thing about this. If I grab my pillar, I grab my foundation, do myself a double axis offset, we do this, then we do the same floating pillar trick that I literally just did. Got 1 more on this side and 2 more on this side, so it becomes 5. Then it goes a half wall over in all directions. So if I were to take this from here, and we do the same thing over here, we just bring this same pillar over and support each other, then we go. All right, we fill in this roof as it be. Okay, not my favorite, but definitely not the worst we could have done, especially because we know that we need it to be taller right here. So if we were to encase this normally, I mean, maybe do a triangle. I know that there's going to be, oh no, because you can't do triangles on diagonals. Maybe if we just do triangles on the end here and pretend that the half wall isn't an issue. It's a really tiny gap, and realistically, you're not going to notice that. If you really care, I think you just take it out with detail planks. This is the kind of thing where detail planks, or even just curtains, would work. You just don't want the full thing showing. Everyone's favorite solution to every problem. Detail planks really would solve this one, and you didn't even have to be that convoluted about it if you didn't want to be. I think you just build yourself a tiny bit of scaffold like that, and then you just fill it in. Because any angle you're going to look at this from, you're not going to see that. Especially not when we paint it all solid white. If we're looking at it from here, even if you're looking at it from down here, unless you're really looking at it, you're not going to notice that gap. It's not going to be a problem. But again, we knew proportion was going to be kind of hard here. And I think that might be our option, TM. Because ideally, this would be a smooth, shallow curve, but we don't have anything that curves like that in this game. And to keep things simple and buildable for the average person, I think that's what it takes. Again, if we really wanted pure accuracy, I would just build the whole thing out of detail planks, but that's not the goal. The goal is to have a usable raft that you could feasibly build in a real raft playthrough that would still be functional and usable. So I think we're going to do the same pillar trick on top here that we did down below there with the half pillars and then a shelf right here on this side. Somewhere like that. We grab our long cabinet again. Yeah, 2 half pillars maybe. We do want to get the little tiny antenna that's on top of the dredge boat. We either go diagonally like that, and then it looks like a cross for more angles, or we go, maybe we do both. We just keep it so that way no matter what angle you look from, it's got the 2 spokes. Then we grab our zip line back. Right, anchor it right there, and then we see if we can get it. No. It's always going to clip through that half roof specifically, which again wouldn't matter in real life. Oh, unless we just do that maybe? I don't know if that worked or if that was the mod. Yeah, so it really doesn't want the zipline to be even close to touching the bottom here. And you connect no problem. As long as I can get this connect to here, we're golden. I have a cursed solution idea, but it might work if I did on one of these and then brought a double axis offset foundation. We brought it up to about here-ish. If I were to theoretically be able to place a zip line right here, would it ever work is the question. Let's see. Carpet. My best friend. If I put a carpet on both layers, then it works. You see that green. I know you see that green. If we do that, right, and if I were to theoretically support it with another, like if I were to take a horizontal half pillar and go this way, and then we go inside like that, building utilities is still off. So everything I'm doing right now is valid. If I do this again, can I just place it on a horizontal pillar? I can. Like that. That just worked. That didn't even question whether or not it was placeable. It just accepted it. And I connect from here, here, and then here, to here. It works. It's only slightly jagged, and honestly, I don't really mind the inset zipline anchor. If I then just take my long cabinet back, because again, this is just normal placement, it just requires you to be a little patient, then you get a little bit off, you get the thicker pillar aspect. That's not bad at all. And then one of my favorite other techniques for when you need just a little bit of extra shape but don't want it to be a full wall is just to put two cabinets facing into each other. We'll do it kind of right here. All right, so that means we need the iconic lantern right here. We don't have a lantern of scale, so maybe another fire basket. Our two options for lanterns are the torch or this small metal lantern. And this is not proportional to the massive lantern that's in game. I think maybe fire basket, because that's about the right side. Maybe if we do an upside down, kind of angled fire basket, building utilities is still off. So theoretically, anything I place right now is just raft being raft. Temporary stability carpet, get rid of all this that's in the way. Then we just rotate this to be kind of swinging in the direction the lantern is. And I think we get rid of the, yeah, so as long as the shelf isn't too obtrusive visually, because nothing we do is going to actually swing. That's important to remember. There are not real motion physics in this game. That one might just be a suspension of disbelief, along with suspension of lantern. Worst case scenario is always detail planks, but I really don't like overusing them. We've used quite a lot already. So let's give this a quick coat of paint, see what we're thinking, see how it needs to change visually, and then work on the rest of the utility. We know that the bottom of the boat is this rust red color, which you can paint in-game. I just think the red is kind of iconic, and we're going for what most people would recognize as the dredge boat, so we're going to keep it red for now. My dredge boat is blue, though. All right, the trim is light gray, as we want it to still be visually different than the white that we're going to establish for the main hull. And then we can paint this entire area white, and we paint the curtains black to get that window coloring in. And then for the roof, I think we need splotches of brighter red and maybe a little brown. Is the roof on the dredge boat is kind of patchy. We want to get a little bit of a color mix in there, but not a huge color mix. It needs to be, I think, within these three colors. You could even rotate the triangle direction if we're feeling really fancy. I'm not, but you could. Kind of get a little bit more of an effect there. Not a huge one, but if we take literally just a single detail plank on either side, we kind of go like this. We paint that red, like that. Yeah, and then the roof has a little bit of texture to it, but that was still really easy to do. And then it's just a matter of adding a few extra details to make certain things really pop. I think we can just do a few half pillars around here. We make this look all pretty. We paint those red to make it fit better and distinguish it from the rest of the boat. Flying around it, everything looks good. We can put a curtain over this hole to cover it up a little bit. Then we got this is our little drawbridge activator. It has no problem going through objects when it's upright. And you've got a farm down here. Those are all fully watered. Animal area. And we've got our little galley down here. Easy access through and through. Because again, realistically, most players are just going to go like that when they need to exit the boat. Then up here, we've got the steering utility. Some of the paint went through the wall, that's okay. And that finishes off what I think is good on most of the exterior. The only details left are the tires. And I think the easy solution for that really is just going to be piling up detail planks in the shape of a rough circle. Detail planks are not my favorite thing to work with, but I think that is kind of our option here. That's the only round thing that we don't really have a good substitute for. Technically, there are usually fishing poles right here, but we don't have big displayable fishing poles in this game. What other decoration objects would we include to kind of mimic that? Maybe you have surfboards. Put a surfboard on top of here. Honestly, that's not bad. If I can wiggle this so that there's a zip line behind it too, that might be a kind of valid substitute. Honestly, that's not bad. If we paint it brown, that's not bad. I kind of like how that works. Yeah, that's really not bad. I think we're on the wrong side of the boat for them, but that looks correct. I'm going to move these over to the other side of the boat and just do that again. All right. So that is the outside structure of the boat. Don't quite like how tall that is, but I don't think we have another solution because we don't have another half wall tall that we can go. So I think we're going to work with this, and all that's left to do is most of the kind of decor options in the bedroom. As far as functional items, we've got a functioning receiver, we've got a steering wheel, we've got an engine, we've got engine controls, we've got an anchor slipped into the floor right there. We've got recycler, we've got windmill, we've got sail, we've got smelters. You could easily put a ton more smelters right here and that wouldn't change anything. We've also got plenty of storage. We got biofuel, we've got automatic water, we've got a kind of out of place kitchen, but it's totally fine. And I think that covers my checklist of all necessary items to make a raft. So from here, it's mostly just decoration. The research table could go literally anywhere. Obviously, I'm going to put it in one of the more decor heavy areas. I like the idea of this being a bedroom where you could come and steer, and then this being more of an office type space. So for decoration, I'm thinking we just turn this into an office and this into the bedroom. I'll see what I can come up with. After much thinking, I have come up with a better interior for over here. So I got rid of the dual tier staircase and replaced it with a normal staircase again, because that allowed me to slot the juicer into this space technically. Then we can get rid of this wall that was cramping it and make room for this cooking pot, which you could obviously add a ton more of those or other kitchen decorations. And it even leaves a nice little seating area right here, which is cute. And then upstairs, we've made it functional and a little bit more cozy. I kind of want a little ham on the decoration. So all of your nav equipment is right here, as it normally should be. I turned this area into a bedroom, as I said I was going to. And again, little ham on the decoration, but it looks nice, and all you need is the bed. Wardrobe is just for funsies, and then tiny bits of extra storage in the cupboard. And this is the little office space with your research table, more decorations, and even a little bathroom. Because why not? So that means that this entire boat even is lined with storage, literally. But it is all fully functional. It is survival friendly. Besides maybe the lantern. But other than that, it should be usable in a normal vanilla playthrough. So I'm pretty happy with that. Do a quick fly around, see how it looks. You know, again, the roof is my least favorite part, but there's not really a great way to accomplish that in Raft, so it is what it is, unless you just want to do the entire thing out of detail planks, which I would if I was really just going for aesthetics, but ease of building is something I consider. Then we've got the lining with the detail planks, the slight slope here, and I think that's pretty much it. So I officially recreated the boat from Dredge and Raft to the best of my ability. So I hope you enjoyed this thought process into how I design my builds. It's not terribly complicated. It's just a lot of destroying things and rebuilding until I'm happy with what I've created. But I hope you enjoyed this foray into my little brain. That's everything for me for now. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you all again soon. But until then, have a great day.